Hello guys, today I'll be talking about what I think is the worst song from each Deftones album. Now keep in mind this is just all my opinion, you don't have to agree with it, but feel free to let me know what you think is the worst song from each Deftones album in the comment section below. And also my mind can change at any time when it comes to some of the songs that I choose, of course. And also some of these songs that I choose are songs that I do like from the band, but let's go ahead and get into it. Of course, it all started with this album, Adrenaline, from 1995. And when it came to picking a worst song from this album, it was actually kind of tough. I might have gone between maybe one or two songs, maybe, but honestly, it took me a little bit to kind of figure out what I think is the weakest on here. But I decided to also think about replay value a little bit when it comes to picking what I think is the worst song. So I decided to go with the album closer, Fire All. And of course there is the hidden track Fist, but I decided not to count that. I decided to just focus on the main songs that appear on the album. So of course with the CD, it says that, or it shows that Fire All is the final track on here. If I'm pronouncing that correctly, I'm not sure, but for me, this is the song that I just find myself returning to the least off the album. And it's not a bad song. I do like the song, but for me, not a song that I think to go back to as much as some other songs on here, like Engine Number 9 or 7 Words or Root or Bored or Minds Blindfolded, and of course some others. But yeah, that's my pick for Adrenaline. So let's go ahead and move on to the next album. So we move on to Around the Fur, which is hands down one of my favorite albums of all time. But when it came to this album, it was actually kind of an easy one. And honestly, I don't think this is a weak song. It's just, for me, it's always been my least favorite on the album. That song is Die of the Flu. Kind of like with Fire Real or Fire All. Die of the Flu is a song that I return to the least from the album, but it's a song that I've grown to like more with time. While not one of my favorites on the album, I still think the song is pretty good, but yeah, again, gonna have to go with that song from Around the Fur. But let's go ahead and move on to White Pony. And this was another tough one for me, but at the end of the day, I decided to go with Pink Maggot. I just don't return to this song very much, to be honest. And the song is fine. It's just not a song that I care to go back to as much as other songs like Change or Digital Bath or Knife Party. And I know that some people would probably pick Back to School, but I actually like that song, and I know that the band doesn't like that song. The band themselves don't like it, but I like that song. Is it one of the best songs on the album? Absolutely not, but I wouldn't say it's a bad song. And I have a feeling that some of the hate that song gets from fans is really only because the band doesn't like it. So they feel like, oh, the band doesn't like it, so therefore I shouldn't like it. But for me, again, I like Back to School, but again, not one of the best songs on here, but some of my favorites on the album, you got Passenger, Knife Party, Change, Digital Bath, and Streetcar. But again, my least favorite on here has to be Pink Maggot. Let's go ahead and move on to the Self-Titled. And this was honestly an easy one for me. I have to go with Anniversary of an Uninteresting Event. Probably maybe one of my least favorite Deftones songs in general, to be honest. I mean, it's a song that's just never really done a whole lot for me. Now, I wouldn't really say the song is bad by any means. It's always been the song that's kind of grabbed me the least off the album. It just doesn't really interest me as much as as much as the rest of the album, to be honest. And when it comes to the Self-Titled, I do think that the first half is easily the stronger half. But when you move towards the second half, things aren't as interesting in my opinion, but still you get some solid stuff like Battle Axe and Bloody Cape. And I even like the more experimental song on here, Lucky You. That song is kind of the teenager on the album, but I do like that song. And the album closer, Moana, has never been one of my favorites off the album, but I wouldn't say it's the weakest, because I think that song is actually kind of decent. But again, the Anniversary of an Uninteresting Event has always been, again, my least favorite on the album, and just the replay value just isn't quite there for me. But yeah, that's my pick for the Self-Titled album. Let's go ahead and move on to Saturday Night Wrist, and I'm sure for many people this is probably an easy one. So probably already know what song I'm going to choose, and that song is Pink Cell Phone. And I think most of us can probably agree that's probably one of their worst songs. Now, I wouldn't go far as to say that's like unlistenable or like god awful. I wouldn't go that far. I mean, it's by no means a great song. I mean, it's one of their more experimental songs, and ultimately, at the end of the day, it didn't work all that much, at least for me. While fairly listenable and nothing too offensive, it's just for me easily the weakest song on here. But next we move to Diamond Eyes, and this was kind of another easy one for me. I kind of went between this song and the album closer, because those two songs are probably the songs that I go back to the least off the album. But This Place Is Death, especially after hearing it again recently, I kind of like that song, but my least favorite has to be 976-Evil. It's always been the song that just hasn't really grabbed me as much as the rest of the album. It just, for me, doesn't really do enough to stand out as much as some of the other songs. And I still think it's a decent song. I do like it. It's just, I just find myself going back to other songs more, like Command Control or the title track or Beauty School, You've Seen the Butcher. Prince is a song that I've actually grown to enjoy more with time. Now, it's not one of my favorites on the album, but again, I've grown to like it more over time. And I actually dig the riffs from Stefan in that song, especially, and Prince. And Risk is a song that I think is kind of underrated, but yeah, again, I'm gonna have to go with 976-Evil from Diamond Eyes. That's probably gonna have to be my least favorite off the album, or what I think is the worst song. But next, we're gonna go ahead and move on to Koi no Yokan. And I might have to go with probably the album closer, What Happened to You. For me, not their strongest album closer. For me, honestly, not as memorable as the rest of the album. I mean, you really can't go wrong with the rest of the songs on the album, especially the first 7 songs, especially. But What Happened to You, I mean, it's just not a song that I think to go back to very much, and for me, not as musically interesting as some of the other songs on here. But yeah, decent track, but probably easily my least favorite from Koi no Yokan. Next, we're going to go ahead and move on to Gore, and this album gets a lot of flack, but I like the album. I do think it's their weakest, but again, I don't think it's a bad album. It is an album that I would defend, but does it rank as one of their best? Hell no. But when it comes to what I think is the worst song, I kind of went back and forth between 2 certain songs. Track number 6, Pertura Infamante, however you pronounce that, and track number 8, El Mural, however you pronounce that. But I decided to go with track number 6, Pertura Infamante. I mean, that's probably up there as one of the worst songs, I'd say, to be honest. For me, a very uninteresting song. Musically, doesn't really do a whole lot to really leave much of a mark on me or leave much of a lasting impression, to be honest. And again, by no means a terrible or bad song. It's just, for me, a fairly weak Deftones song overall. But again, while listenable, while not terrible, again, just Deftones to me, I think, can do better than that song. But so yeah, that's my pick for Gore. Now let's go ahead and move on to their most recent album, Ohms. So yeah, with my CD copy, I have the CD booklet signed. Not in person, I got it online, but again, pretty cool to have. But yeah, when it comes to Ohms, I was kind of going between 3 certain songs. Track number 6, Pompeji, however you pronounce that. This Link is Dead, and Headless. But through thinking about it a little bit, I think Headless is kind of an underrated song. While not one of my favorites, I do like it though, and I dig the chorus in that song. And Pompeji, Again, however you pronounce that. Decent tracks though. I have to go with This Link Is Dead. For me, when it comes to the replay value of the songs overall over time, I think that's probably the song that I've been going back to the least. One of the songs that I've been going back to the least from the album, and which is kind of interesting because that's, if I remember correctly, one of the heavier songs on the album. But I don't know, for me, it just hasn't really held up for me as well as some of the other songs on here, like Orantia or Error. Honestly, those first 4 songs are pretty dang good. And The Spell of Mathematics is a song that I've grown to like more with time. I remember during my first few listens, I thought it was just okay, but I've grown to like it more and more with each listen. And Radiant City is a song that I think is kind of underrated, to be honest. And honestly, I'd say the same thing for Error. That's one of my personal favorites on the album. But again, if I had to choose what I think is the worst song on here, I'd probably have to go with This Link Is Dead. But again, as I mentioned earlier in the video, or towards the beginning of the video, my thoughts on what I think is the worst song on each album could change at any time. And with this album, no exception. But again, gonna have to go with This Link Is Dead. But anyways, those are my picks for worst songs. Let me know your thoughts on my picks. Do you agree or disagree with some of my picks? Let me know what you think is the worst song from each Deftones album, or if you want, let me know some of your favorites from each album and all the good stuff. But anyways, thanks for watching. See the comment, like, subscribe. Have a nice day and take care.